The world of 1938 was teetering on the edge of chaos. The Great Depression had left its scars on every street, every home, and every mind. Unemployment was rampant. Optimism was in short supply. It was in this climate that I, Napoleon Hill, began to see the world not just as it was, but as it could be. A new world is revealed is not just a declaration of hope, but a statement of necessity for me, for the country, and for anyone who ever dreamed of more. I wrote these words at a time when faith in the future was a rare commodity. Most people I met were haunted by the past or paralyzed by the present. They had become prisoners of circumstance, convinced that the new world would be nothing more than a repeat of old disappointments. But I refused to believe that destiny was determined by headlines or history. I saw, with growing clarity, that change does not come from governments or great men. It comes from the minds and hearts of ordinary individuals who dare to see differently. In this chapter, I ask the same of you. The new world is not a place you stumble into by accident. It is revealed only to those who question, who imagine, and who act. The world I began to envision was one where the lessons of adversity could become the seeds of growth, where fear could be exposed and defeated, and where each person could discover a power within themselves far greater than anything the outside world could offer or take away. But before I could speak of this new vision, I had to face my own doubts. The shadow of fear is always longest before the dawn. For me, it appeared as self-doubt, anxiety about my message, and the worry that maybe, just maybe, I was foolish to think that words could change anything. Yet, it was precisely in that moment of uncertainty that I discovered something remarkable. The mind, once awakened, can never return to sleep. Once you see that the world is made, not found, you realize you are a builder, not just a bystander. The new world I write about is not a promise of riches or unbroken happiness. It is the awakening of possibility, the realization that the most important battles are not fought in the marketplace or the halls of power, but in the quiet of your own heart. It is in your mind that the devil wages his campaign, and it is in your mind that freedom is won. As you listen to this chapter, I challenge you to see yourself not as a victim of your times, but as a creator of your own era. The old world, with its fears and limits, is always waiting to pull you back. The new world waits for those willing to break free, to think independently, and to step forward with courage. Are you ready to see what others miss, to hope where others despair, to build where others only mourn? Then welcome, your new world is already taking shape. What does it take to reveal a new world, not only in theory, but in lived experience? That question haunted me as I sat down to write these pages. Most people think of change as something that happens to them, as if history or fate dictates who rises and who falls. But what I discovered, both through study and bitter personal experience, is that the power to create a new reality lies within the individual within you. The old world, with its routines and expectations, wants you to forget this. It wants you to settle for a life built by others, to accept the boundaries that have always existed. Yet, every breakthrough, every innovation, every new society, every personal triumph begins with a moment of questioning. It begins when one person refuses to take no for an answer, refuses to accept that the limits of yesterday must define the possibilities of tomorrow. The new world is not just revealed by circumstance, it is called forth by the courage to challenge assumptions. In my own journey, this realization didn't come easy. I had been trained, like most, to see the world as fixed, to believe that hardship was something to be endured, not overcome. But after years of failures, setbacks, and the humbling lessons of poverty, I realized that adversity itself was a signal, not a dead end, but a detour sign pointing to something greater. My mind began to open, little by little, to the idea that if I wanted to live in a better world, I had to start building it from within. The new world I saw was not utopian. It was not free of pain, nor was it guaranteed to reward every effort with success. But it was a world where meaning was made, not given, a world where the mind was the true frontier, and where the capacity to think independently, to question, to dream, was more valuable than any inheritance. I began to understand that the chains binding most people were invisible. They were not made of iron or laws, but of beliefs deep, often unconscious, beliefs about what was possible, what was proper, and what was safe. This insight led me to a revelation that changed the course of my work. If you want to change your life, you must first change your mind. You must confront the devil on his own ground, not in the world outside, but in the world within. The devil, as I would soon define him, is that voice that whispers, "You can't, why bother?" or "Be realistic." It is the force that profits from your hesitation, your doubt, your willingness to let the old world dictate your choices. What separates the creators of new worlds from those who merely endure the old one is not luck, talent, or even hard work. It is the willingness to think a new thought, to question the way things are, and to act on your own convictions even when the crowd scoffs or warns you to stay in line. The new world, I realized, is built by the few who dare to ask, "What if?" and who refuse to wait for permission to change. But questioning alone is not enough. The new world demands action, a daily commitment to living by your own vision, not the world's script. For me, this meant risking the security of conformity for the uncertainty of growth. It meant enduring the criticism of those who believed that good enough was the best anyone could hope for. It meant discovering, through trial and error, that real freedom is not the absence of hardship, but the presence of purpose. If you are willing to take that first step, to ask the hard questions, to face your fears, to accept the responsibility of authorship, you have already begun to reveal a new world. The rest is a journey, sometimes long and winding, but always worth the cost. As we continue, I ask you to reflect, where in your life have you accepted the old world's limits as your own? What would change if you truly believed, that your mind could shape your destiny? What new world could you reveal, for yourself and for others, if you had the courage to try? Are you ready to build? Then let's go deeper. There is a hidden power that comes alive the moment you decide to stop living as a spectator in your own life. The new world is not a different country or a distant agate, is a revolution inside your mind, a switch from waiting to creating. For years, I watched people cling to the belief that their destiny was sealed by forces beyond their control: the economy, their family, the political climate, the times. But what I discovered, through failure as much as success, is that the world bends slowly, sometimes painfully, but inevitably toward those who persist in thinking and acting for themselves. In my study of the most successful men and women, I saw a pattern. None of them started with a guarantee. All of them were at some point out of step with their surroundings, laughed at, criticized, doubted, even ostracized. What separated them from the drifting crowd was not a lack of fear or hardship, but a refusal to let those things write their future. Instead, they chose to build a new world by carving out new habits, new thoughts, and new standards for what was possible. But let's be honest, stepping into a new world is uncomfortable. The old world offers security, even in misery. Its boundaries are familiar, its rules are known. The price of entry into the new world is discomfort sometimes, loneliness, sometimes ridicule, always uncertainty. You will be told directly or indirectly that you are foolish, naive, or arrogant to question the script. You will feel tempted to shrink back, to apologize for wanting more, to make yourself small for the comfort of others. This is the devil's playground. Here is where most people give up, not because they are weak, but because the pain of standing alone, even briefly, is sharper than the dull ache of an unfulfilled life. It is here that the voice of doubt whispers its most convincing arguments. What makes you special? Who do you think you are? Better the devil you know. My own journey through these doubts was no different. There were nights when I wondered if my dreams were too big, my hopes too stubborn, my questions too dangerous. But each time I was tempted to return to the old world, I remembered the alternative: a life half-lived, defined by what others permitted me to attempt. I chose again and again to walk forward even when the path was lonely or unclear. The new world reveals itself only to those willing to keep walking when others stop. It opens its doors to those who act with integrity, who risk embarrassment for the sake of growth, who understand that failure is not final but simply another lesson on the road to mastery. In this world, your mind is both the architect and the builder. You decide which thoughts to entertain, which beliefs to question, which dreams to pursue. No one can do this for you. The devil, both as metaphor and as inner adversary, will try to distract you, discourage you, and delay your progress. But every small act of courage, every new thought, every choice to persist in the face of doubt is a brick in the foundation of your new reality. There is no going back once you have glimpsed what is possible. You may stumble, you may have to start again, but you will never again be satisfied with drifting. The old world may call to you, offering comfort and predictability, but it can no longer command your allegiance senat after you have seen what your mind can do. I invite you to take inventory of your own life at this crossroads. Where have you been holding back, waiting for the world to change before you do? Where are you hiding your ambitions, your talents, your questions because you fear the discomfort of standing apart? Remember, every advance, every invention, every step forward for humankind began with someone willing to look foolish for a time. The new world is not for the timid. It is for those who are willing to risk, to fail, to begin again. It is for those who understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear dictate their fate. As we push further into this journey, keep asking yourself, what will I do with the possibility I have discovered? What world am I willing to create, no matter the cost? The new world, as I experienced it, is not built overnight. It is shaped one decision, one belief, one uncomfortable step at a time. There is a powerful illusion that real change comes in, a flash inspired by a great idea, a burst of motivation, or some miraculous external shift. In truth, the new world emerges gradually, often imperceptibly, as you choose, day after day, to live by your own convictions rather than the comfortable habits of the past. I saw this firsthand during the years when my own confidence was at its lowest. After setbacks and public doubts, it would have been easy expected, even for me to retreat. Many urged me to do just that. Play it safe, Napoleon, they said. You've done enough. Why risk more? Yet every voice that told me to give up was simply an echo of the old world, a world terrified of uncertainty and allergic to boldness. If I had listened, I would have abandoned not only my work, but my true self. Instead, I decided to act as if a new world were already possible. I started small, setting aside time each day to think deliberately, to write, to question my own assumptions. I began noticing how much of my previous life was on autopilot, me opinions borrowed, my fears inherited, my dreams muted to fit someone else's idea of realistic. The process was neither glamorous nor easy. At times, I felt isolated, misunderstood, even foolish, but I discovered that each small act of defiance, every honest question, every refusal to drift strengthened my resolve. I invite you to do the same. The new world requires habits that support your highest vision. It demands that you build discipline where you once had only desire. Every time you choose action over inertia, clarity over confusion, you lay a brick in the foundation of your own reality. The devil, in my experience, has little power over those who are too busy building to listen to his whispers of doubt. But do not expect applause. The old world does not celebrate those who outgrow it. You may find that friends and even family resist your changes. They may mock your dreams, question your motives, or worry that you're becoming someone else. Let them. Your journey is not an attack on their choices, but a declaration of your own freedom. In time, your courage may inspire others to question their own boundaries, but even if it does not, you will have gained something far more valuable: self-respect. A new world also requires a willingness to learn from failure. Many people misunderstand this point. They think that if they stumble or fall, it is proof they were wrong to try. In reality, every failure is a message, a lesson about what the old world could not teach you. The only true defeat is refusing to try again. I learned, often painfully, that setbacks are not signals to stop, but invitations to refine, adapt, and persist. Perhaps the most important habit I developed was the discipline of self-reflection. Each evening I asked myself, did I live today by my own design, or did I let the old world steer my choices? The answer was not always flattering. Sometimes I had to admit I'd slipped back into drifting, but each honest answer gave me another chance to begin anew. Over time, I saw progress not as a straight line, but as a spiral, rising with every lesson learned. You too can build this habit. Take time each day to pause, to look inward, to check whether your thoughts and actions match the world you want to create. It is in these moments of reflection that the new world reveals itself not as a fantasy, but as the next step on your own, unfolding path. The journey is never finished. The old world will always try to reclaim you with promises of comfort and approval. But once you have seen what is possible, you will find it harder and harder to settle for less. So, As we continue, ask yourself, what small, consistent actions can you take today to claim your place in the new world? What habits or patterns no longer serve you? And most importantly, are you willing to keep building, even when no one is watching? Perhaps the most radical part of discovering a new world is realizing that, in the end, you are responsible for how it unfolds. This is a terrifying thought for most. It is far easier to believe that someone else, the economy, the government, your upbringing, even fate is responsible for your future. The old world is built on this belief. It offers comfort, even as it quietly drains your strength. But the truth, uncomfortable as it may be, is that the moment you claim authorship over your story, everything changes. You move from being a pawn to being a player. I did not come to this conclusion lightly. For years, I wanted to believe that my failures were the fault of circumstances beyond my control. But as I watched others sometimes, with less talent, less education, fewer advantages rise above their challenges, I could not escape a new liberating idea. The real difference was always mindset. Those who thrived were those who believed they could shape their world from the inside out. They used adversity as fuel. They made decisions even when afraid. They took the first step, and then the next, before seeing the whole staircase. This shift in thinking did not make life easier. It made life more honest. The world did not suddenly become fair. But I found a sense of power I had never known before, the power to choose my response, to direct my focus, and to persist when others would have quit. This, I realized, is what it truly means to reveal a new world. Not to escape the difficulties of the old one, but to meet them with new eyes, new tools, and new determination. With this mindset, I began to notice opportunities where before I had seen only obstacles. Ideas that once seemed too bold, too risky, too different, became the very keys that opened doors. I stopped waiting for approval or guarantees and learned to trust my own judgment. The old world, with its chorus of caution, still called to me, but its arguments grew weaker as my confidence grew. The new world is also built through connection. As I reached out to others on a similar path, I found a rare camaraderie, a bond formed not by shared backgrounds, but by shared vision. These were people who understood the cost of growth, the price of authenticity, and the value of persistence. In their presence, I saw that I was not alone. The devil, who thrives in isolation and secrecy, lost much of his power the moment I began to share my struggles and listen to the stories of others who had faced similar demons. One of the most valuable lessons I learned was that you do not need to change the entire world to reveal a new one for yourself. The transformation begins in the smallest details, the thoughts you entertain, the conversations you have, the routines you create. Every new choice, no matter how minor, is a declaration that you are building something different, something yours. If you feel resistance, now, if doubt or fear is rising within you, as you listen, know that you are standing at the gateway. The old world will always try to pull you back. It will tempt you with memories of comfort, with reminders of past failures, with the opinions of those who never dared to try, but these are merely echoes of a world you are leaving behind. So, I challenge you, claim responsibility for your story. Ask yourself, what if I am not a victim, but a creator? What new choices could you make today that would serve as bricks in your new foundation? The journey is yours, and it is underway the moment you decide to own it. As we press forward, remember, the new world is revealed not in grand gestures, but in quiet acts of courage repeated every single day. That is where freedom is found, and where the devil is finally outwitted. One of the subtle lessons I learned while forging my own new world is the importance of persistence. The urge to turn back, to seek safety in old routines, is strongest just before a breakthrough. The devil, whether you think of him as an inner adversary or a force in the world, grows most persuasive when you are on the verge of real change. In those moments, he whispers that growth is too hard, that discomfort is proof you are on the wrong path, that you are foolish for believing in anything more than the status quo. But the truth, I found, is that these doubts are not stop signs, they are invitations to move forward. I remember vividly the times when progress felt impossible. The world seemed indifferent, even hostile to my efforts. Setbacks mounted. People I trusted doubted my sanity or intentions. More than once, I thought of giving up, letting the old world reclaim me, making my peace with mediocrity. Yet each time I lingered in that threshold, a deeper voice spoke. You have already come too far to turn back now. With each act of persistence, however small, I carved a new path through the wilderness of uncertainty. This lesson is not unique to me. In every story of achievement I have studied, there is a common chapter. The moment when quitting is easiest, when giving in to fear seems sensible, when the promise of comfort calls with a sweet voice. But it is exactly here, in this crucible of doubt and fatigue, that the new world is truly won or lost. The ones who succeed are not those who never feel fear or exhaustion. They are those who keep moving step by step, no matter how slowly. To cultivate this kind of resilience, you must develop rituals of renewal. I learned to pause and remember why I started. I made it a habit to review my progress, not just the victories, but also the setbacks, seeing each as a lesson rather than a verdict. I found that progress, when measured honestly, is rarely as small as it seems. Even the days when I felt stuck were often building unseen strengths, laying the groundwork for later leaps forward. Another tool in building the new world is imagination. The ability to picture a reality beyond your current circumstances is a muscle that must be exercised regularly. I would spend time every day imagining not only what I wanted to achieve, but also how I wanted to feel, who I wanted to become, what kind of relationships and experiences would fill my life. Imagination is not just for children or dreamers. It is the blueprint from which new worlds are drawn. When used with purpose, it is the antidote to drifting. Of course, imagination must be joined with action. Daydreams alone will not break the spell of the old world. Each imagined possibility must be tested, shaped, and sometimes discarded through real effort. The devil will try to convince you that if your first attempts fail, your vision was foolish. But every builder of worlds knows that setbacks are simply data, not destiny. They are reminders to adjust, to grow, to persist. Connection also sustains persistence. As I moved forward, I learned the value of surrounding myself with people who supported my growth: mentors, friends, and fellow travelers. Their encouragement and example helped me stay the course when my own confidence wavered. The old world often isolates those who dare to change, but the new world welcomes all who share its vision. So, as you listen, ask yourself, what rituals or relationships help you persist? How do you renew your commitment when doubt creeps in? Where might you strengthen your imagination, your discipline, your circle of support? The journey to the new world is long, but it is built moment by moment on the simple decision to keep going. The closer you get to making your new world real, the more the old world tries to pull you back. Sometimes it's loud criticism, doubt, even outright resistance from those around you. But more often, it's subtle: the quiet voice of self-doubt, the comfort of old habits, the gentle pressure to blend in and play small. This is where the real test begins, not of your talent, but of your resolve. I remember as I pressed forward how the routines I once considered harmless suddenly became obstacles. The way I spent my mornings, the conversations I tolerated, the books and news I consumed, each was a vote for either the new world or the old. If you are not careful, your habits will quietly return you to the very place you set out to leave. The devil loves routine, especially when it masquerades as productivity or responsibility. So I made a study of my daily patterns. I asked, does this action move me closer to the life I want, or is it a distraction? I began to realize that every repeated choice, however small, was a brick in the foundation of my reality. This is the law of habit, and it is as relentless as gravity. The good news is you can choose your habits. The bad news is if you don't, someone else, your past, your fears, the old world will choose them for you. Changing habits is not glamorous work. It is slow, often frustrating, and rarely noticed by others. But it is the secret to every real transformation. I found that by changing one habit at a time, getting up earlier, spending time each day on my most important goal, speaking honestly even when it was uncomfortable, I began to tip the balance in favor of my new world. Each success, however modest, built confidence for the next challenge. Community, too, became more important than ever. The new world cannot be built alone. I sought out allies, people who encouraged growth, who asked good questions, who refused to let me settle for mediocrity. Their influence was like wind in my sails, pushing me forward when my own energy lagged. The devil, I realized, is weakest where people gather to share hope and accountability. I also learned to watch for the signs of drifting. Drifting, as I've described before, is not always dramatic. It is the slow slide into comfort, the way ambition shrinks under the weight of convenience. To counter this, I made it a practice to shake up my routinesto, try new things, meet new people, stretch my skills. Change, I learned, is not just something that happens to you, it is something you must invite, even create. Above all, I realized that progress is not measured by how quickly you achieve your biggest goals, but by how faithfully you return to the work. Every day you wake up and choose again, you strengthen the muscles of will, imagination, and purpose. The old world loses its hold, not in one great victory, but in thousands of small decisions to persist. So, as you approach your own new world, I urge you, guard your habits, choose your community with care, shake off drifting whenever you notice its grip. And remember, you are never more than one honest decision away from moving forward. The old world will never stop calling you back, but each time you answer the call of your own vision, the new world grows more real and the devil's power fades a little more. As I reflect on this journey toward a new world, I'm struck by a truth that is both liberating and daunting. No matter how far you go, the work of growth never truly ends. Each new level of awareness brings new questions, new challenges, and new responsibilities. The idea that you can one day arrive, that you will wake up to find yourself fully free of old fears, doubts, and habitudes, another illusion of the old world. Real freedom is not a destination, but a discipline, practiced day after day, choice after choice. It took me years to accept this. Early in my journey, I longed for a finish linea moment when I could say, I've made it, I'm safe, I'm done. But every time I reached a milestone, I discovered it was only a starting point for new growth. The world, both within and around us, is always changing. The devil adapts, tries new tactics, finds fresh ways to tempt us back into drifting or complacency. It is the price of being alive and awake. You must continually recommit to your vision, renew your resolve, and refine your habits. In those moments when fatigue set in, when I felt like the work would never end, I found strength in perspective. I reminded myself of how far I'd come, of the fears I'd faced and the comfort zones I'd left behind. I celebrated the small victories, a day lived by my own design, a habit changed, a fear confronted. I learned to see setbacks not as failures, but as invitations to learn and adapt. The old world sees struggle as proof of defeat. The new world recognizes it as a sign of growth. Another truth emerged: humility is essential. Pride, especially the kind that insists you should have arrived by now, can quickly lead you back to the old world. Humility keeps you open to learning, to help from others, and to the possibility that the next step forward might not look like you expect. I sought mentors, welcomed feedback, and paid attention to the stories of others who had walked a similar path. Their wisdom became my lifeline in difficult seasons. One of the most powerful tools for sustaining progress was gratitude. The devil thrives on discontent, always pointing out what you lack, what's unfinished, or what could go wrong. But gratitude shifts your attention to what is working, what is possible, and what has already changed for the better. By regularly pausing to appreciate the journey, I kept my focus on the abundance of the new world rather than the scarcity of the old. Purpose, too, became my anchor. Whenever I felt lost or tempted to give up, I returned to the reason I started this journey in the first place. Why does the new world matter to me? Who am I building it for, just myself, or those I love and hope to inspire? Purpose gives meaning to effort and context to struggle. It transforms the daily grind into a labor of love, a mission rather than a chore. Finally, I learned that compassion for myself and for others was not weakness, but strength. The journey to a new world is messy, slow, and often lonely. There are days of doubt, setbacks, and even heartbreak. But if you can offer yourself the same patience and forgiveness you would give a friend, you make it possible to begin again, no matter how many times you falter. So, as you continue to build your own new world, remember, there is no end point, no perfect moment of arrival. There is only the next step, the next choice, and the willingness to keep moving forward imperfectly, but persistently. The devil's voice will fade, but it never disappears entirely. What matters is not that you are never tempted to drift, but that you always return, again and again, to your own purpose and vision. As you press forward into the new world, a profound shift begins to take hold. A shift, not just in your circumstances, but in the very way you perceive yourself and your possibilities. The old world, with its endless cycles of hope and disappointment, begins to look smaller and more distant. You realize, sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, that much of what you once considered reality was only a reflection of beliefs inherited from others' beliefs about what's possible, what's safe, what's normal. The most powerful discovery of all is that reality is malleable, and you are its primary sculptor. I found this truth both exhilarating and sobering. On one hand, it meant that I was free, no longer bound by the expectations or fears that once defined my choices. On the other, it meant that the responsibility for my life rested squarely with me. There were no more excuses, no more easy villains to blame. The new world demanded that I become an active participant, not just a critic or a bystander. This responsibility can feel heavy at times. It is easier to drift, to wait for permission or a clear sign before acting. The devil exploits this tendency, offering the comfort of indecision, the seduction of endless preparation, the distraction of other people's dramas. But the moment you recognize this pattern, you reclaim your power. You remember that the most important permission you will ever receive is the one you give yourself. The power to choose is the engine of the new world. Every day presents you with 100 opportunities to steer your life, to rewrite old scripts, to step forward when habit says stay. You may not control the world, but you always control your response to it. This is not just an idea for philosophers. It is the foundation of every real transformation I have witnessed or experienced. With this awareness, even the smallest decision becomes significant. Choosing what to think about as you wake up, how to respond to frustration, whether to pursue a goal or abandon it, these choices build on each other, creating momentum in the direction you most desire. The devil loses ground with every act of conscious intent, every moment you decide for yourself rather than waiting for someone else to decide for you. One of the unexpected gifts of living in the new world is the emergence of deep, authentic relationships. When you commit to growth, you attract others on a similar path. The quality of your conversations changes. Superficial talk gives way to real dialogue about dreams, setbacks, hopes, and fears. You discover that courage is contagious when you risk honesty. You give others permission to do the same. In this way, the new world expands, not just for you, but for everyone willing to join you. Of course, there will still be days when the old world tugs at your sleeve, when you feel out of place, misunderstood, or tempted to shrink back for the sake of peace. These are the moments to pause and remember why you began. The road of transformation is not always smooth, but the view from each new height is worth every step. As I moved further along this path, I realized that my role was no longer just to escape the old world, but to serve as a bridge for others. My struggles, my questions, even my failures became signposts for those who came after. The most powerful thing you can do, once you have glimpsed the new world, is to help others see it too, not by preaching or persuading, but by living your truth with integrity and openness. Let this be your challenge. As you continue, look for ways to extend a hand to others, invite them into your journey, celebrate their courage, and support them in their own moments of doubt. The new world grows stronger with every honest connection, every act of encouragement, every story shared. There is one final step to cementing this transformation, a final part of the journey that brings all the lessons together and launches you fully into your new reality. Reaching the end of this chapter, you might expect a grand conclusion, a finish line at which everything suddenly becomes clear and easy. But the truth of every new world, mine, yours, and everyone's, insists that it is always unfinished, always becoming. The most dangerous myth of the old world is that arrival is the goal, that security and certainty are the prizes for a life well lived. The new world reveals, instead, that the real prize is growth, the never-ending evolution of your mind, spirit, and actions. This realization changes everything. You stop looking for external signs of success, and you begin to measure your progress by your willingness to keep moving forward, even when the way is unclear. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the decision to stay on the path, to welcome discomfort as a teacher, and to meet each new challenge with curiosity rather than fear. The new world is not a place you reach and settle in. It is a way of living, a daily choice to participate, to create, and to keep questioning. By the time I reached this point in my journey, I understood that my mission was not only to free myself from the invisible chains of the old world, but to light the way for others. If you have followed me this far, it means you are willing to become more than a passenger in your own life. You are willing to become the architect of your future, the author of your own story, the one who decides what world you will build and inhabit. The devil, as you will soon see in the main interview that follows, is relentless. He does not rest, nor does he play fair. He waits for you in the shadows of your old habits, your unexamined beliefs, your moments of fatigue or despair, but now you are prepared. You have learned that the antidote to drifting is conscious action, that the answer to fear is curiosity, and that the true measure of progress is not perfection but persistence. Let this chapter serve as your contract with yourself, a promise to keep moving, to keep questioning, and to keep building, even when the world around you says to stop. Your new world is both a privilege and a responsibility. It demands vigilance, courage, and the humility to begin again, no matter how many times you stumble. As you prepare to enter the core of Outwitting the Devil, the bold, unfiltered conversation that lies at the heart of this book, bring with you all the lessons, the doubts, and the hopes that have surfaced so far. Let them sharpen your questions and embolden your answers. The devil's greatest weapon is passivity. Your greatest shield is participation. Remember, no one can build your new world for you, but no one, not the devil, not the old world, not your past, can stop you from building it once you have decided to begin. Take a breath, stand tall. The hardest part is not behind you, but neither is it beyond you. The next phase awaits, and with it, new challenges, new revelations, and new opportunities to shape your destiny. Step forward, the interview is about to begin, and your real adventure is only just unfolding.